Hello and welcome to a new episode of B2B e-commerce integrated. My name is Arno and I'm the Chief Product Officer at Sana Commerce. And in this podcast, it's all about B2B e-commerce. At Sana Commerce, we believe that by using ERP integration, B2B companies are more successful than B2B companies that use mainstream e-commerce solutions. You do not have to replicate data and logic around complex pricing, stock, orders and quotes in multiple systems, and there is no need to maintain that data and logic in various systems. And more importantly, less prone to error by making ERP and commerce work as one. This results in better relationships with your B2B buyers and more commercial success. So in the episodes, I have various guests from IT leaders to e-commerce experts of manufacturing, wholesale, and distributing industries, as I love to understand their perspective on B2B e-commerce. So you can find the podcast in the channels such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Google with the name B2B e-commerce integrated. And in today's episode, I have a guest all the way from the US, Curt Anderson, who has over 11,000 followers on LinkedIn and is an expert in e-commerce for manufacturing industry, as he has been working for various projects to help businesses to further grow and expand in today's e-commerce world. So welcome, Curt.
Arno, man, thank you. What an honor and privilege to be here today, and just welcome any of your listeners out there, and just super excited to have this conversation with you.
So Curt, can you please explain to our listeners more about your background?
Sure, Arno. So, I started, I had a wholesale business in the 90s. Arno, dude, you were probably like on your, maybe you were in diapers at the time, right? So this is like,
maybe. I'm young, right, but not that young.
So I had a wholesale business, and here's my claim to fame, Arno. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. My accountant said I was the biggest disaster that she had ever met. How do you wear that hat, right? I'm the biggest disaster she ever met. So I'm like, man, what am I going to do? And it's 1995, and I was just running out of options. So I tried this little e-commerce thing. Like at the time, internet was new. This whole e-commerce, like people are actually going to take a credit card and like punch it into a computer. Are you kidding me, right? And so I started on e-commerce, and it was a long, fun journey. But man, it turned into a wonderful thing. And so I've been in e-commerce ever since. So 28 years, man. So I'm not a young guy anymore, but it's been a great run. And e-commerce is just, as we talked, it's a must to have, not a nice to have. And so I love what you're doing, your mission, what you guys are doing to help manufacturers really step up their e-commerce game is just so admirable. So that's why I'm really honored to be here with you today to talk about this.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love your show as well, and what I often see, especially focusing on manufacturing companies, wholesalers as well, that are part of your show, and that you are also, I think you're helping with your company. You're helping these companies, right? So, can you maybe elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I had my e-commerce business, and just it was tough. It took me a long time, but I was very fortunate, very blessed. Here in the States, there's a magazine called Internet Retailer. I was very fortunate. We landed on Internet Retailer Top 1,000 Companies 3 years in a row. And then I was even further blessed. I ended up selling that company. And then what I found was like my passion, my purpose, my mission was trying to help other, manufacturers, other companies, entrepreneurs, figure out this whole e-commerce thing, So even we're 30 plus years in e-commerce. It's still like, we're just starting this. We're just scratching the surface. Like the party's just starting. So for any of your listeners out there, like, man, I feel like I'm late to the game. You are absolutely not late to the game. And what's just awesome is when you can align with somebody like yourself or trusted guides. And you mentioned like what we do. So I work with a number of different universities and different organizations here in the United States. And we try to educate manufacturers and entrepreneurs on the benefits of e-commerce and how to get into it, because there's a lot of There's a lot of misunderstandings. It's daunting, it's challenging, it's frustrating, it's overwhelming, intimidating. And so, I think that's where we aligned is, we want to reduce that overwhelm for our clients, for our manufacturers. And that's what I love what Sana does, is like, you just come in and just really embrace those clients that like, how can we help you how can we guide you to success as seamlessly and quickly as possible?
Exactly. And that is, I think, one of the major topics for today, which I really look forward to. It's the beginning of the year. Everybody has, New Year resolutions, or maybe it's already fully started with that. And as you mentioned, it's never too late to start, or that you say, yeah, I'm too late for the game. And especially I think on the, let's say, the smaller sized companies that are still feel like a very scary step to take.
Yep.
And that is, I think, that's an interesting topic for today to talk about. So let's first talk about that scary part, or why do you think so? That's especially smaller size companies, wholesalers, distributing companies. Why do you believe they find it scary to start or to move their business from, let's say, traditional offline to online?
Boy, great question. As a matter of fact, I did a live in-person workshop yesterday, which is great. Now that, the world's starting to open back up again. So it's great getting out and being with manufacturers. And, there was a manufacturer in the room, he had no website. I'm like, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, it's 2023. This person had no website. So the challenge is, so like I'm what we call a digital immigrant. Okay.
Yeah.
So anybody born before 1980, I was born way before 1980. So here in the United States, and, we call them, the baby boomers and Gen X. Okay. So, that generation is, they've been in the trenches for years, decades. Maybe it's a family business where mom and dad ran the business, grandma and grandpa. So like there's that tagline, is a scary tagline. This is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
And I think there's that fear factor of bringing on a new technology, and, you guys doing an incredible job working with manufacturers on ERP systems. And, it's, again, I'm sorry to like beat it to death, but it gets overwhelming, challenging. So if you look at it from the entrepreneur standpoint, what's their risk? What are their challenges? What are their frustrations? It's, a lot of times these projects are not, they're not inexpensive, right? It takes an investment to get into e-commerce. We're doing a huge project in the state of Texas right now. It's probably a $250,000 investment that they're making into like going full blown B2B play on e-commerce, so that's a big step for a company to write that check, right? So the thing is, from a small entrepreneur standpoint, it's very, can I make the investment? Can you guarantee me what's the ROI? What does the future look like? Because I don't know what it is. And again, that's why it's so important for these entrepreneurs, manufacturers aligned with, with Sana, with your company, with guides, with experts, trusted resources that have been in the trenches to help them get through that. On the other side of things, say if you have I know you work with bigger companies, say even there's a bigger company, it's a large size company and they just haven't tipped their toe in e-commerce yet. So now how does that buying process work? Somebody down the food chain, maybe there's a marketer, maybe there's somebody in sales. They're like, hey, our competition is starting to get, that's usually the biggest motivator, is when competition is getting involved, we need to get in, right? Yeah. So now if marketer or sales rep on the street is like, hey, I'm getting beat up because competition is in e-commerce, somebody's going to start that buying journey, that research due diligence process. So they're going to stumble on your company or whatever process they're going to look at, and then they're going to report up the food chain of like, hey, this is what we're seeing. So now it's a decision by committee. Mm-hmm. So for the small entrepreneur, small manufacturer, it's daunting, challenging because there's an investment. For the large company, it's like decision by committee. So both, it's not super easy on both fronts.
Understood. Yeah, and well explained. And I think it is, right. So 250K for a small size company. Let's say if you have between 10 or 20 million revenues a year, then still right. 250K is quite an investment, quite a check, as you mentioned, to write, right? And what do you explain them to them? How could you make it successful, or let's say, how can you take that fear away? What tips would you normally give to these kind of companies?
Yeah, I think we're far enough. Though I call it the e-commerce party is just starting. We're deep enough into it. So for the folks, like the word pioneers. Okay, so the pioneers. We think of like the Amazons and like the folks that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s. They made a lot of the mistakes. Okay. Yeah. So the great things like companies, the .com bubble from 20 years ago, a lot of companies fell off the wayside. Now it's here to stay. Okay. So now we're past the early adoption phase. Now, like, this is regular business. This, like, it shouldn't be like, hey, this is online marketing. This is just marketing. It's marketing 01. It's not online marketing. It's marketing. Like, this is sales. So this is a part of your business. And if you're not embracing e-commerce, you're really not only are you putting yourself at a disadvantage, I hate to use the word like disrespectful, but like are you being respectful of your customer's time? Because like so many, if I don't know how you are, like when it comes to, if it's a new technology and I don't like, I'm like, man, I just don't have the bandwidth and I don't want to learn it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for us guys, Arno, not to throw us guys under the bus, but guys hate looking foolish. We just don't want to look foolish. So like, who wants to ask the question, or I don't understand. So if it's a technology that we don't, that we're not fully grasped on, we're like, it's easy to ignore. So the thing is, for e-commerce, as you're describing, that manufacturer or that entrepreneur, since they don't want to know it or understand it, it's very easy to be like, hey, let's ignore it. Yeah. But, like, hey, if, our customers like calling us, are you positive that your customers like calling us? Because maybe they would rather just go log into a customer portal, buy the 5 items that they need, and no disrespect, not that they don't want to talk to you or see how you're doing or how your weekend was, but it's just a lot easier for them just to send that order in. And so, and again, as you and I know, it's that must to have, not a nice to have. Yeah. So that's, we could go further there if you want.
No. Yeah, we will. But let's digest this a bit, because I think there is some really good value there. So a couple of things you mentioned already. Yeah, it's scary. It's a big investment. And also that's what we see at Sana, like, especially, we still see, let's say, what we call first generation e-commerce coming in, right? Although that's changed over the year, as you can imagine. Also, we went as a product a little bit more upmarket, where you see more second and third generation, even fourth. So, but still, let's focus on this first generation. And I think, things that we're doing with the podcast, or just putting customers on stage, sharing that message, that it can be very successful for your company is one thing that is helping. On the other hand, that's also what you're mentioning here, right? It is not a online marketing anymore, but it is marketing and it is sales. And that is, I think, one of the big changes from the, let's say, past 2-3 years, where we saw also in the numbers from our customers that it was really on the pivoting point, that before the online revenue was smaller than the offline revenue. But now things turn around, right? We see a lot of our customers are 50, 60, 70% plus online versus offline, right? So more online than offline. And then it literally changed, that there is no online marketing anymore. No, it is marketing. It is sales. And that's and that's, I think, the big difference. That also means that if that's the point, then if you're investing in marketing and sales, you should be investing in online marketing and sales, right? So you should invest in these online things. 250K is still a big project. With Sana, we can also, for the very smaller companies, we can do with less, and we also do a lot of proof of concept or trials, so that customers can try and feel. But still, it's indeed the scary part, because it's not only the technology, you also need to change as a business, right? And that is also the other thing you mentioned. Like, nobody wants to get fired or wants to look foolish or wants to look stupid, and I think that is still a lot of, especially in the smaller companies, especially in manufacturing and in B2B manufacturing, distributing companies, education, and transferring the message. What we are doing today is a must-have to do. So I think people can really benefit, like consultants like you, and there are more in the world, but you as well from B2B Tail, that are just helping out these companies and sharing a message or showing them how other companies succeeded with adopting B2B e-commerce, and that it is not scary if you just make the right decisions. Talking about that, so if they decide to take or to embrace B2B e-commerce and start with it, right? What challenges are there then? So let's maybe focus on, do you have any things to share, how IT is involved, or marketing or sales, or what are the challenges then, the next steps there, if they already made this decision, okay, we want to go online, well then what?
Absolutely. Great question. And so, and maybe I went a little, sour, negative, right? Like, it's daunting over all that. So let's flip the script. Let's get super positive, right?
All right. Let's
go that full, right? We want to fire up the troops. We want everybody on this call just sprinting into e-commerce, because if you're not racing in e-commerce, there was a research report that came out last year by Gartner and the research firm. 83% of B2B buyers prefer e-commerce or digital transactions. Let that digest. Savor that for a minute. 83%. So again, if you're not in this, you're really putting yourself at a true disadvantage. So let's go positive. One thing, so what we try to do is like, we do a lot of webinars, workshops, that type of thing. And what we do, Arno, is we show stories. We want to pull that manufacturer into the success story. We want them to see themselves on the white horse, waving a flag of victory, right? That's what we want to show them, why they need to do this and how to do it. Okay. So once we get them fired up and excited about, my big word is possibilities. Just come into it with an open mind of like the possibilities, because like, I don't know about you, like when you're working with folks and a lot of, well, man, what if that doesn't work? Or what if this goes south? Or what if this, so if we flip that script and said, hey, what if this was like phenomenal? What if this was like the greatest thing? What if this was like a pivot and like took our company to a whole new direction that we like beyond our expectations? What if, right? So I'm going to encourage everybody out there, think about the e-commerce opportunities and possibilities that this could bring to the table. What we love to do is we pull them into the story. We'll show case studies, success stories. We can talk about those. But when we get into that project, this is what I've found is like super successful, even like mentally, behaviorally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. We go really tight in phases. So instead of like, man, this is a $250,000 e-commerce project, or even for the small company where it's a $30,000 project, which is still significant, right?
Yeah.
What we do is like, okay, here's phase one. This is what phase one looks like. And we're not going to deviate unless like we all together as a team say we're going to deviate for this reason. But this is phase one. And so I'll run an example. Like we're launching a brand new project on Monday. It's a company, they do covert antennas. So you think like police, armed forces, emergency, like anything that needs a covert antenna. This company, they've been around since the 60s. Great company. We're going very strict in phases. So like first phase, hey, customer portal. Let's create a really robust customer portal. So for, our current clients, they know us, they love us. We've done business with them for decades, but we're dedicating ourselves to making their life easier. So now they can buy. Then phase two, then we're going to open up the wood shop, if you will. Like, hey, let's bring in new customers. And now we're going to start getting aggressive from a marketing standpoint, SEO, so on and so forth. Let's invite new customers. But once we get the current customer base locked and loaded, then we're going to go into phase two. Then we have a phase three. So they feel very comfortable. They're excited. They're not overwhelmed. And so I guess my takeaway there is I would encourage if you're a little like hesitant, man, break it when you're talking to your e-commerce guide, consultant, firm, like Sana, whatever. Say, hey, could we tackle this in phases just so we're on the same page? So we've been finding a lot of success with that approach.
I love to hear that, and we do experience that as well, and we actually have that in our practices or how we work with customers that need it in this way, and I think it's working out great. So, is there maybe a success story that you can share, or doesn't have to name the company, but or if you can, but just just for our listeners, for their imagination.
I'd be happy to. So, hey, Arno, I'm going to take for a shameless plug. I'm going to tell you about my mom has a favorite book. It's her favorite book. It's called Stop Being the Best Kept Secret. It was written by her favorite son. Of course, I'm her only son. So in my book, Stop Being the Best Kept Secret, actually, it's a kind of an e-commerce resource guide. So sorry to throw out my shameless plug there.
No, but nice.
But in that book, I go through like what I love to preach and talk to are custom contract manufacturers. Okay.
Okay.
So when you have a OEM, original equipment manufacturer, they have a proprietary product. They have they have those goods that they can list. It's a much easier e-commerce play. It makes a lot more sense, right? Are we B2B, direct to consumer, whatever that looks like? The contract manufacturer, the custom manufacturer, they feel left out of the e-commerce party because they're like, man, I'm always making something for somebody else. Okay. And like to invent something, to be innovative, like, hey, that's not our jam. Like we're widget makers. We know how to make this widget. Like, man, we've been doing it for decades. Nobody makes it as good as we do.
Yeah.
However, typically when you talk to that custom manufacturer, if you take the 80-20 rule, say like, hey, what 20% are driving your 80% of your profits, right? They'll be like, oh, well, it's this. Okay. And like, okay, well, right there, that's a potential e-commerce opportunity. What if we take some of those goods and, hey, what if you start standardizing something like, hey, here's a standard product here, here's a standard product there. Your risk is like, hey, be a little bit below, what you guys offer, but throw up something super cheap on a cheap shopping cart, throw a few bucks into it. Let's just see if anybody out there wants this or needs this, or talk to your customers about that. So we did this with an electronics manufacturer. It's called Faulkner Electronics. They were founded in 1985. And the problem with contract manufacturers, I don't know if you encounter this, sometimes
Yes.
as entrepreneurs, we try to be everything to everybody. And what happens? We're nothing to no one, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. And so we're trying to sing to everybody instead of the little tiny audience, the niche that really wants to hear our song. Okay. I call it, hey, let's niche down till it hurts, man. Niche down and stay in your lane of where you really crush it. So what this company did, they were doing electronics. Okay. And so they sell to Walmart, they sell to Lowe's here in the States. So if you walk into the television department of Walmart and you see every single television all of North America is plugged into this heavy duty power unit, and it's manufactured right at the small 30-person contract manufacturer, Faulkner Electronics. Okay. Well, they also were making these little tiny things are called ground straps. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everything that draws a current needs to be grounded. So they were making thousands and thousands of these little ground straps that would go in wire assemblies or their power units or whatever. But they were selling it to one customer. And I'm like, hey, guys, by chance, is there anybody else on this planet that would buy, it's a multi-billion dollar, it's probably, multi-billion dollar market, massive. Everything that draws a current needs to be grounded. Yeah. Is there anybody else? There's nothing proprietary about it. There's no patent about a ground strap. I'm like, is there anybody else on this planet that could use a ground strap? They're like, well, yeah. Well, they had the equipment, they had the machinery, they had the raw material, they had the know-how, they had everything in place to scale this one part. With the exception of marketing, they were the best kept secret for this product. So we're like, hey, we'll throw up a couple web pages we'll make up sizes. We never even put a single one in stock. Let's just put up a bunch of sizes on a web page. If nobody buys, man, I owe you guys the cost of a couple web pages. All of a sudden, a customer bought. Then another customer bought. Then we started doubling down on content. Then all of a sudden, they started getting first page rankings. Then all of a sudden, we're beating Fortune 500 companies on Google searches. Then all of a sudden, Lockheed Martin knocks on their door. Ford Motor knocks on their door. Boeing knocks on their door. So all of a sudden, all these Fortune 500 companies, all because we took a chance, stayed in our lane, focused on our niche, and just went all in on one particular product line. So that's what we do. That's what we work on with manufacturers, especially those custom contract manufacturers. How can you find that niche and discover that e-commerce gold?
That is your big lesson. So find that niche, and I love that story. And I'm definitely going to use it more and more. We trying to preach that as well, and we have done so, but we can emphasize it more, and we take the lesson from Curt there. So find that niche. It's so in one sentence so easy. But we have so many clients always coming to us, and they start with e-commerce and they want everything. Okay, let's put online these 200, 300, 600,000 SKUs. And that's a huge pile of work. Everybody knows that from IT. We can stumble upon and talk about that for another 4 hours, how difficult it is. But if you just look at it from another perspective and find that 1, 5 or 10 products that are easier to sell, but also sell a lot or bring that revenue, then you can find success easier and also make a much bigger impact. So that is definitely, I think, something I will at least remember, and hopefully the listeners will take that into account as well. And even some of our customers, I think, can still optimize their web stores by not focusing on as many things as possible, but the most profitable or the best, finding the best niche. And that is, I think, a very, very nice one. And talking about that in the on the other spectrum, because still you mentioned a nice topic, right? These contract manufacturers and doing also everything custom. There is on the other side of the spectrum also a solution which is more like configure price quote, so that you make custom deals or custom offerings with technology, right? That is also an interesting topic we have discussed before, and I think that is on the other edge, right? Instead of just finding that niche and that 1-2 products that are easy to sell, you can also look for the custom products, because there is also a huge, I will not even say hype, but just a lot of, energy on that topic. And we see a lot of customers now onboarding with CPQ solutions. So What can you share about that? So, or maybe let one more sentence. So CPQ, configure price quote, is most of the time that you have tooling in place where you can make different configurations, different settings to build out your product or your solution more or less tailored. So if you can imagine if you're buying a car or if you take it more B2B, maybe like a truck or something, and you can select the wheels, the engine, and this and that, and tailor it for your needs, right? And that's what we're seeing, of course, in B2B a lot, especially for this contracting manufacturers, right? So, maybe elaborate a little bit more on that, Curt.
Yeah, and I think, I'm going to take a page out of your book, dude. And this is what I really admire what's going on with your company and how you guys are going global. And like your tagline, prioritize relationships, not just transactions. I just absolutely love that. So I think if everybody could just focus on that for a second, when you can be solution focused, not necessarily product focused. And I think that's another, that I think if there was any advice or any takeaway today with our call on like e-commerce strategy, it's right there, man. If you prioritize the relationships, dedicate yourself to understanding your customer, and not only just your customer's customer, right? Yeah. If you're in the B2B space, well, somebody's using that product somewhere, not necessarily in a home or a consumer base, but what does that look like? So, you're talking about, configurators, man. I'm like a raving configurator junkie advocate. I feel I'm biased where any company that makes any type of product, I feel can be configured in some capacity. And when you can offer that configurator, you're creating such a dynamic competitive advantage. I know you guys have a powerful solution. So again, anybody out there listening, man, reach out to Arno, the team. And if it's not a great fit, you can, just keep exploring. But boy, it doesn't, I'm so biased. Like, it doesn't matter. Like this, the clothes that we're wearing right now, I need, this size, I need this color, I want this written on it, to, like you just mentioned, a car. So like anything. So like I just mentioned my little ground strap example, that's exactly what we did. So we created a standardized product line just to kind of like, hey, who needs these things? And when you do have that standard product, I'm going to throw my SEO hat. Boy, you have a great opportunity, especially for when you're in a B2B space where those keywords are not as competitive. And I won't go super deep there because I could geek out really hard on SEO, like getting those search rankings. Stop being the best kept secret. But when you have those standard products, you're number one, you're helping your customer make a buying decision. Number two, you're putting yourself at a huge advantage from a search standpoint. Okay. Now, what we found is people are like, hey, this is awesome. You have this product, you have that product. However, I see you have 8-inch, I need 10.5-inch, or I see you have this width, I need this width, or this configurator or configuration, what have you, right? So we sat down, we're like, hey, this is a configuration opportunity. And so when we've done this with multiple different companies or different products, projects. And so it's like super easy, 5-step, click here, takes 60 seconds. So for that busy engineer that's trying to create a prototype, that busy person in purchasing that has 30 things to buy today. And like, they're like, oh, I need to send in an RFQ. I've got to send in this. I got to wait 3 days for a quote. When you have a configurator, and this is the preach that we love to say, Arno. What the configurator does, you're 6 hours ahead of me right now. We're in different time zones. We are in a global market. How can you help that ideal buyer make a buying decision on a Friday night at midnight without having to wait for you to open up your doors on a Monday morning? If you could have that configurator, you're putting that customer service, that information, you're putting that labor on your website. Now, when you walk into the office Monday morning, somebody is like already, they're 90% there. They're like this close to buying. And now they pick up and now you can close a sale, or maybe you can even just close a sale with that configurator. So yeah, I'm a raving, advocate for configurators. I love what you guys are doing. So anybody out there, if this is new to you or a new term, I would strongly encourage you, invite you, welcome you. Boy, talk to Arno and the team and like, how can they help my company separate us and make that competitive advantage?
Yeah, thanks, Curt. And I think that is definitely the lesson here to share. And what we still see even with mature companies in manufacturing, that they say always their strengths and their values indeed is with this relationship with the customers they have, and that they are so precise and so good in manufacturing into the smallest precision, the best precision, etc. but they always take these orders by phone or by email and or indeed with an RFQ, and they are not knowing or not aware of that there are solutions, pretty mature solutions, and also with us that can automate that, and that is there. And just to make it a step further, of course, you can make it look good and just get your configurations in. But with Sana, one extra benefit I want to share here is that we go 2-3 steps further, because we talk a little bit more tech here. So with our integration with the ERP, so the whole production lines and all production processes are integrated in our solution as well. So as soon as, let's say, this order has been, or your product has been configured, or you as a B2B buyer make that configuration, place that order, it's directly in the ERP, directly connected to these, production lines, and all automation is, let's say, end to end, from B2B buyer, from somebody in the factory that is, welding the stuff together to make it exactly to your specs. So I think that is awesome, right? Then you are, that's the making things digital, right? End to end.
Yeah. And think about, like, if I'm going in the right direction here, take a manufacturer of an OEM, okay, or whatever they make, and say, I'm just thinking like, a lawnmower or something like that. This was an example. I had a company that had reached out, and they were in the agriculture space, and was, so just for simplicity, let's just call it a lawnmower, right? So they're selling a lawnmower. Well, maybe somebody, wants like certain parts, so instead of me like, snapping a picture and saying, hey, I need this, what if you had on your website the breakdown of that part of that unit, and like, here's part A, here's a picture, here's a description, click buy, here's part this, here's, so like if you have 50 parts in this, finished good, and you could like make it so easy and so seamless for that buyer to just buy the exact part that I need, right? I can't tell how many manufacturers I work with where they'll be like, a customer will text them a picture or email them a picture like, I need this part. Well, if you can have that information right on your site, make it just super easy, and just click the easy button and just buy. Everybody wins, man. It just make it, and look at the competitive advantage you're creating for yourself. Definitely.
And that is how we see customers succeed a lot. And spare parts, you need to have, and we call this feature exploded views. And so that you, and you can start small, or do it fully automated. So given a sample of starting small, it's just by measuring, at least in Sana, a matter of just uploading a picture of that product, and you can make heat maps on that picture and just select, okay, this is the wheel of the mower, this is the engine, this is the oil filter, and so on and so on. But that's a little bit of manual work, but still you have done it, and from there the B2B buyer will love it. So they do not have to send that picture anymore by phone or by email or whatsoever. It's automated. But if you have 20,000 products or different mowers, then it maybe is a lot of handwork for the e-commerce manager and so on. And also if you take SEO and all the stuff. So we have also automation around that, so that you can upload these files, these technical files. I think they call CAD files or SVGs, where is these technical drawings of these machines. And there is also already data where which part is what, and we support these formats of files as well. They are coming sometimes from the ERP, sometimes from product information management systems. We do a little bit of magic and we show them online, and for the B2B buyer, he or she has the same experience. Just seeing the product that he has ordered before, and based on that map, he can just select the thing that's broken, and within, as soon as possible, you can start mowing again, right? Because that's the point. You do not want to lose time, and you do not want to wait to open wait before the stores open or the office opens to call, right? You want to do that now.
Yeah, and oh my God, dude, that was so good, man. And like,
thanks.
I know you have a tagline: e-commerce built with your ERP at heart. And I just like what you just described. Again, it's like
exactly this.
It's the dedication of your company to the solution for your customer, as opposed to like just being product based and focused. And I love what you're saying. So like, if you have like the lawnmower example that we're giving, maybe it's in agriculture, and like like this production, or like this farm is shut down because like they need one part. And so I mean, it's not just a matter like, hey, gee, I can't mow my lawn on a Saturday. Like this could be like catastrophic for a business. And again, the easier you make it, the more loyal customers you're going to build. So I love this conversation.
Understood. Another topic, yeah, maybe we make a small jump from here, but we have talked, of course, it is an investment, but we also see, some things in the world changing around. Of course, we had COVID, but now we see maybe some economic challenges, and so companies needs to save costs, or they see that their production costs are rising because of the ingredients they use, or the supplies costs have been rising and rising. Inflation is there. All those things are at play. What can you share about that? Because then maybe it's hard to say do that investment in e-commerce, right? Because it's another investment you need to make. But maybe it could also be a huge cost saver. Is there any tips that you can share there, especially in this hectic times?
Yeah, great question. Good conversation. Very hot topic these days. And so, one of the taglines is we're talking configurator, e-commerce, seamless, make it as easy as possible to buy from you. The term that we're using is digital self-service.
Yes.
We're hearing, like labor costs are going up. So restaurants around the world are trying to figure out how can we make that customer relationship? How can we bring our labor costs down? And everybody's like, oh no, we're cutting jobs. Well, we're just trying to keep costs efficient. We're just trying to keep, otherwise, you walk into a restaurant, we're not going to be able to afford it anymore, right? So like, how do we keep those costs down? So again, let's go back to like that configurator situation. If you don't dedicate yourself to being found online, how on earth, if you and your family are going on vacation, Arno, what's the first thing you do, right? If you're going to buy a car, if you're going to make a purchase, send kids to college, whatever the decision that somebody's going to make, typically the first thing we do is we're going to go online. If I'm looking for a new vendor, a new B2B relationship, I'm an engineer creating a new part and I need to scope out a prototype product. I'm going, they're going to Google. Like what's plan B, right? They're going to Google. So number one, if you're not found in search, if you're not found on social, or if you're not, whatever product service that you're selling, if you're not where your customer is, you're just simply not in the game. You're intentionally making yourself irrelevant, right? So again, must to have versus nice to have. You have to dedicate yourself to being found online.
Yes.
Land on a website. If I land on your website and it's like, it looks like a business card. And this is interesting for you. This was years ago. I had a client. I went to their website. It was really rough. And so I'm working with them. And the reason that they let me in the door is, had this not happened, this was like manufacturers very resistant. Mm-hmm. They had a client. So here in the States, I'm in New York, and there was a company that came to visit them. They had a multi-100,000, I can't remember how many, like say, ball fields. I know like we call it soccer, you call it football, how many soccer, football fields it would be. Massive, amazing, impressive facility, right? Yeah. This gentleman from another state, Wisconsin, which is the central part of the States, came to New York, took a tour of the facility, was blown away. It was a multi-six-figure project. At the end of the tour, the guy turned to him and said, you know what? I almost didn't come visit you because your website was so bad. And I felt that your website was so bad. I'm like, what's going on with the rest of this company? So if your website isn't your absolute, it's probably arguably your most important employee today, don't you think?
I agree. So if you need to make decisions, and tough decisions, like we all need to do as leaders, right? If you're running a business, and taking the fact that, let's say, online marketing or online sales and is marketing nowadays, then maybe it's better to reduce cost or be more efficient on the old things you were doing in the past, but invest in the new things if you have not already done it, because it will not only open up the door, as you mentioned it, and make it a good thing, but it will also be increase the efficiency within your company because you can automate stuff more. Right? So it's a win-win-win, I would say.
A win-win-win. I agree. And so the thing is, this was a great example. So I do a lot of, as I mentioned, webinars, workshops, trainings. We just did one on just the other day. I do a live stream every week too. And so a client came on and he said, here in the States, we have baseball, okay? Mm-hmm. And baseball is broken down in innings. And he called it marketing is like the starting pitcher in American baseball and goes like the first 7 innings. Then, sales is they come into the 8th or 9th inning to close the sales. So the thing is, if it's very common for manufacturers to kind of like ignore the marketing, man, you're in my baseball analogy, like you're ignoring those first 7 innings, so it's like you're really putting your salesperson at a huge disadvantage. The other thing I'm just going to share with you real quickly, you're going to find that your customer service, whoever picks up the phone, your sales, they're answering the same questions over and over and over and over. I couldn't encourage, invite, welcome your listeners, anybody out there. Boy, get those questions, get those on video, get those into guides, get those into how-tos, get those, and you're like, man, that's a heavy lift. Who's going to do it? But the thing is, once you do it, it is done. And now it's evergreen. And now it's just going to continue on. And look at how much more efficient and how more empowered you're going to make your salesperson or your customer service team when instead of like typing out an hour email trying to respond, where now they could grab a video. They could grab a live stream that they did with a case study testimonial. They could grab a guide, top 10 reasons on how to do, the lawnmower example that we did earlier, right? And I have tons of examples of like, this is how you can capture first page rankings on Google, number 1. So by doing this, it helps you to stop being the best kept secret. Number 2, you're making your team much more efficient. Number 3, as a customer, I don't have to wait for an email, or even better yet, don't even email me. Let me get that information right on your website. I don't even have to bother you. I'm looking at your YouTube channel. I'm looking at your guides, your white papers, your resources. I see dozens of testimonials. I am chomping at the bit to do business with you. If we ignore these things, again, it's just I'm concerned. I'm concerned for the companies that choose to collectively, intentionally ignore those strategies.
Yeah, no, that's another great lesson. Thank you, Curt, and I think a great pitch also for your book, because it's about that, right? The best kept secret. And
my mom thanks you for that, Arno. Thank you.
Yeah. No, very good. And honestly speaking, I didn't read the book yet, but I will do, because I think also with Sana we are on a great journey, and of course the podcast is one part, but it's never ending story to become more famous or more known in the market. So I still believe you are a best kept secret. So we need to learn a little bit more from your book and open up stuff. So definitely on my to-do list to read it.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, I think we are looking at the time. The time flies. Talking with you, Curt. It went so quickly, but looking at the time, we are rounding off. And one thing is the lessons you shared were really, really, really nice. I especially loved it. Finding that niche that will stick for me today, and hopefully that will stick to the listeners as well. I think it's not only for new customers, but also for our existing customers. A great thing to try or to see, and everybody that is in B2B e-commerce, obviously. All right, so thank you very much, Curt. If listeners want to know more about you, they can go to b2btail.com. I think that is a place to be, or just find you on LinkedIn, Curt Anderson. It will be directly on top of the list. I already checked it. And you're active, man, on LinkedIn. So every 2-3 times a week you have something, right? Like a webinar or something else, like a workshop. It goes on and on.
I'm one of those annoying people. So I do a couple. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a live stream in a couple hours. So what we do is we bring in high-level experts of different topics related around e-commerce, manufacturing, and so we have a great time, a lot of fun. We welcome people to join us. So I'd love to connect with any of your listeners on LinkedIn, and if we can help them in any way, you and I partner together, and that'd be just a blessing. So, and thank you, Arno. I can't tell you how honored I am. I know we're across the pond from each other, and this was just such a delight, and just you made my month. And so thank you for this great opportunity to be with you guys today.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice weekend, because it was Friday that we recorded this session. So
it is a Friday. So hey, and just everybody, happy e-commercing. Go out there, just be relentless, have courage, and you can do this. So just get out there and reach out to Arno, and Arno will make the magic happen.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. See you next time, Curt. Thank you.